The Angel is kind of like, it's like a rough and tough version of a French press. It's like a French press that you would take to the construction site or into the forest, or maybe you would use it when you were taking apart a car or something like that. But I could also see just hucking it into your car coffee carrier when you're on the way for your day and you're going to bring a lot of coffee with you. It's a pretty cool device. Everyone's all confused now that I have a beard, but I like it when people don't throw things at me when I have a beard. I thought maybe that this would stop that. It didn't. Well, anyway, what got thrown at me today? It's the Angel Coffee Maker Thermos from gregmarg.com. I'm interested to see what this is all about. I'll bet you are too. Let's unbox it and talk about it. Magic. It's been immediately unboxed. How do you like that? The magic of television. Hi, everybody. I'm Brian with FrenchPressCoffee.com, and I had thrown at me earlier the Angel Thermos Coffee Maker from gregmarg.com. This is an interesting piece of coffee tech, I have to say. Just right out of the box, taking it out, I have to say it has a really good feel to it in the hand. It's got these two nicely texturized rubber rings right here, which definitely makes it feel good in the hand. It's easy to hold. And on the bottom, it's got a nice rubber foot, so it's not going to slide anywhere. I really like things that are made to not slide or fall out of my hand or anything like that. That's cool. It's got a good amount of weight to it. I mean, it's definitely made of stainless steel, but it's not heavy, but it's also not, super light. Like, it feels like it's got a really good just overall design to it. I like this handle that's on it because it would be really easy to carry around, which I imagine is one of the major use cases that you would have with this thermos, is being able to carry it around hiking or when you're traveling or something along those lines. And then on the top, it's got a pour spout and a thermometer, temperature gauge for being able to measure the temperature of the liquid that's inside of it. And then over here is this little color changing dial, which from what I have read is basically to allow you to know what it is that you have inside of the thermos. Brown for just standard coffee. Here's orange for decaf, blue for iced, white for water, or you could just make your own mental note of what these are for. I think that's kind of a cool little feature. This pour spout definitely locks down really nicely because it's got this little nub right here, and it pops right into the lid. And then there's sort of another little rubber gasket right here that really should keep that pretty sealed tight, which is really good because no one likes leaking all over themselves when they're drinking coffee. And I like that it says enjoy right here on the top of the lid. So that's pretty cool. There's like little features on this that you can tell that it was, very carefully designed by somebody who thought about what they would want in a coffee thermos. But the idea is that you can brew your coffee on the go in the thermos. So with the lid off, you can see right here, I've got the tip of the thermometer and the temperature gauge. So the liquid would need to come into contact with that to measure the temperature of what's inside of it. We'll talk about that later. And then you've got this filter right here, which is pretty much just a standard metal mesh filter. And that's where you're going to basically have the barrier between you and your coffee grounds and the liquid that you put inside of the thermos. And we'll talk about brewing with it, of course, in just a moment. But overall, first impression, it feels really good. I like the body of it. I like that it's big. I mean, you can tell that this is actually quite a large piece of coffee gear. This isn't very small. One thing that I have disliked about some of my on-the-go coffee cups that also make coffee and things like that is they're a little small. I really love them, like having a French press in a coffee cup, but they're usually a little small. This thing is ready to go. You're going to get a lot of coffee out of this. So I've talked enough about it. Let's see how it works. Making coffee with the Angel is really easy. We're following the instructions that came with the device, which are very straightforward. First of all, you're going to want to use some very coarsely ground coffee. On our Baratza Encore, we are going to use almost the number 40 grind setting by adjusting using our bean hopper and using that little hash mark to point almost towards 40. You can adjust this to your liking, of course. But we're going to use very coarsely ground coffee. Then we're going to use 8 tablespoons of that coarsely ground coffee, and we're going to add those directly into the Angel with the thermos completely empty. After we've done that, we will place the filter screen on top, which will slide right into place inside of the thermos. Then we're going to pour our hot water into the device, and in the instructions it says that we should have this water at about 200 degrees Fahrenheit, which is definitely about right. It's also really important to note that you don't want to drink directly out of the Angel. This is noted a good few times on the packaging and in the instructions, and that's because the water is going to be very hot, and because it's a thermos and it is insulated, the coffee and the liquid inside of it should stay very hot, so you want to be very careful and pour this out using the pour spout. So after we've added our water, and in this case we're going to add enough water to fill the thermos up, we're going to then place the lid on top of the Angel, screw it on tightly, and then we're going to let the coffee inside of this brew for about 5 minutes. Again, this is following the instructions included with the Angel. After that's done, we can pour our coffee out using the pour spout and test out the overall flavor of our brew. All right, and the results. It's been 5 minutes. We just timed it here in the studio, and we've been letting the Angel do its thing. We open it up. Ooh, there was some pressure in there. And that is something that's noted about the device, is that there's a lot of pressure that's going to build up in there. And that makes sense because you've got the heat of the liquid. It's sealed up. So be a little careful when you open it. You notice that I opened this pour spout facing away from me. And now I'm going to pour this out, and we're going to see what we've got. Looks like a good cup of coffee. That pour spout was really easy to use. That's nice. It didn't spill everywhere or anything like that. There was no leaking, which is a big deal. And let's see what we think. That's our brewed coffee. Don't see much sediment, which is nice. It's got good color. It's very hot. So the Angel is keeping true to its word and keeping this coffee really hot. Yeah, it tastes great. It's definitely a little bit like cowboy coffee, a little bit. And if you've ever had cowboy coffee, it's essentially the idea that we're doing here. Your grounds are still floating around in the water. You haven't done an extraction process like with a French press where you're actually going to press down and separate those grounds from the water. So the grounds are still in there. And so it's definitely got, a little bit of that, not too strong flavor, but it's present. It's there. Now, from what I understand, reading the included literature that came with the Angel, because of the pressure that builds up inside of the unit, you should be able to carry this around essentially all day and find that the coffee doesn't get more bitter. I would definitely be interested to see how that works, because typically speaking, we would assume that coffee grounds that continue to just stay in the water would continue to extract and the coffee would get more bitter. But the pressure is probably going to change that process quite a bit. So that will be an interesting thing to check out a little bit as we get to know this device a little more. But it's a very good cup of coffee. As I say, a little bit on the edge of cowboy coffee, but definitely like French press, and good flavor. And the heat is there, which is really nice. I love that this is going to keep it hot. Interestingly enough, as I was saying earlier, there is a temperature gauge, a thermometer here on the top of the lid. And in order to get a reading on that, you need to actually flip the unit over and then leave the liquid in contact with the little stem that comes out of the thermometer so that you can get a reading on how hot it is. Right now, just by that little flip, I'm up just around the 160 range, 160 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's good. If I were to leave this flipped over long enough, I think it should get up to about where my water was when I poured it in, which, measuring off of my fellow kettle that I used, my gooseneck kettle, we set that to brew, or rather to heat the water to just about 200 degrees Fahrenheit. So your mileage may vary a little bit if you're not using a kettle that allows you to measure the temperature and set the temperature exactly. Again, on the literature from the device, it says that you can get your water to a roiling boil. So if you're using just a standard kettle on your stovetop or something like that, if you get the water to a roiling boil, take it off and then leave it for about 30 seconds, it should drop to about 200 degrees Fahrenheit. And that's about what you want for being able to brew in the Angel. So again, this kind of depends on your experience and what you're aiming for. I think that your brew differences are also going to come into play depending on the grind of coffee you use and, of course, the type of coffee that you're using, how it's been roasted, where it's from, things along those lines. So you would want to experiment a little bit, but just as a reminder, we did use essentially the most coarse setting on our Baratza grinder that we were using, and that also was just following the instructions for the Angel that came with it. We usually find it's best to do that, and then you can start to play around a little bit and find your perfect setting from there. So overall, I'd say this is a pretty cool little piece of coffee gear. Again, I really love that it's got the handle and it feels solid. It kind of, I was saying here in the studio, it feels like it was designed by someone who likes cars. It's got really good grip. It's got stainless steel. It looks cool. It's got gauges on it. So this would be an excellent gift for someone who's an outdoorsman, anybody who loves cars and things along those lines. And I think it would be really cool to use when you're traveling, if you work on construction sites, stuff like that. So overall, just a really cool device. Again, love the feel of it. I think it's a really great idea overall, and it's going to give you, I think, a pretty decent cup of coffee overall. I really enjoy it. So there you have it, everyone. That's the Angel Coffee Thermos and Brewer from gregmarg.com. If you're interested in purchasing the Angel, you can find it at frenchpresscoffee.com, our online store. So just visit the link in the description of this video. And if you've got questions, comments, if there's something that we missed, or maybe you've learned something about your Angel that you think we should know, please feel free to send it over to us at frenchpresscoffee.com. We love hearing your coffee tips, tricks, hacks, and more. And until next time, everyone, I hope you have a great cup of coffee for yourself today. I'm Brian with FrenchPressCoffee.com, and I'll see you next time. Take care.
Well, I hope you liked that highly caffeinated video. And if so, go ahead and give us a like, and please subscribe to our channel. And if you do, I'll give you a great coffee quote. So go ahead. I'll wait. I'm going to eat one of these candies. They're pretty good. Go on. Oh, thank you so much. All right, well, now for your coffee quote. Don't laugh at the coffee. Someday you too will be old and weak.